Live. Live. The computer looks like the Matrix. Seriously, like it's going with that green checkered board and like yeah, I don't know. It's funny. But this is my ball here. Let's see. No, not very much light. This is called Merlinite, supposedly. It's a very interesting thing that I've been carrying with me, waiting to gift it, but that has yet to happen, interestingly enough. So I have something I want to read, and until that time comes, we're just going to attune and atone for the things that have been felt and need to be released. So these are singing bowls that I have. I have 3 of them currently. The triune. Okay, so once again, reading from the book, a little bit of time here, so let's see how far we can get. It's time to emit. Aha. Nourishing the life of the flesh. People of the Vedic period did not know a single physical illness. Even at the age of 150 or 200, they remained of good cheer, bubbling with life, and absolutely healthy. They had no doctors or healers like those who exist today in such numbers. Illnesses of the flesh were impossible because the way of life on people's homestead, the natural dimension of love, arranged by them, wholly regulated their nourishment process. Man's organism, and by man here it's human, man's organism was provided with everything essential in the right quantity and at the most propitious time of day for using the food, and at the most favorable disposition of the planets for consuming the food. Interesting translations there. Pay attention. It is no accident in nature that everything is arranged so that in the course of just a spring, summer, fall cycle, different plants ripen and bear their fruits in a specific sequence. First, the herbs appear. The dandelion, for example. They too are pleasant and can be tasty, especially when combined with winter food. The early currants, the strawberries, the raspberries ripen earlier in the sun and later in the shade, the sweet cherries, then the sour cherries, and many other fruits, herbs, and berries, choosing precisely their own time. They try to attract human attention with their unusual shape, color, and fragrance. It's not too unusual because it's what's within you. There was no science about food then. What one should eat, how much, and at what time. No one even thought about that then. Nonetheless, man used everything he needed for food precisely down to the gram. Each berry, herb, and fruit has its own day in the year, its own hour and minute when it can bring the most benefit to man's organism. When raising itself, it completes the process by linking to the universal planets. Then it factors in the nature of the ground beneath, the plants around it, and man, bestowing its gaze upon them, assessing and assesses and determines what he needs most of all, and not just the gaze. That's well, you're not going to realize the power of your own ray until you get to that point. But until then, with the plants, you have to go barefoot around them and spread your aura and essence and breath, and eventually you realize it's just the very vision that you have is what really sets them aflame, a fire, a gaze. On that very day, when it is ready to serve man, man honors it with his acceptance and allows his perfection to be his food. I said that the pregnant woman should always reside in her own orchard in the dimension created with her beloved all 9 months. This is not an occult mystery. In it lies the great rationality of divine being. Judge for yourself. In nature, there are many plants that can discontinue pregnancy in women painlessly. Garlic, for example, and oregano, male fern, birthwort, doctrine of signatures. Why are things called the way they are? Why are things shaped and formed the way they are? and correlation with human body, and many others. Other plants can help in harmony to develop the fruit in the woman's womb. Fruits. No one could ever say which ones must be taken in what quantity. Only he who is in the mother's womb knows this, and he is concerned not only about himself, but about his mother. This is why it often happens that a woman who has given birth to a child becomes prettier, as if younger, not even given birth, but as soon as the mother becomes pregnant, like I've noticed, I've heard that it's immediate, like there's an aura and a glow that happens. For this to happen, the pregnant woman must definitely be in her own orchard. Every blade of grass in it knows her, and the fruit grows only for her. She has also come to know their taste and smell. Her desires are natural and will determine better than anyone how much of what she needs to take as nourishment. On someone else's homestead, in someone else's orchard, that kind of precision is impossible. The other person's orchard may even be many times richer in its vegetation, more varied. Ideal nourishment is also impossible in someone else's orchard because before using some fruit, berry, or herb for food, the woman must first try it. She wanted to eat an apple, so she picked it and took a bite. She swallowed the piece and immediately sensed that her organism did not need this. By doing this, she had harmed herself and her child. Why did this happen? The whole problem is that even outwardly identical tasting fruits can be made up of different substances. In her own orchard, tasting its fruits more than once, she could not make that mistake. In someone else's, a mistake is inevitable. What knowledge, what law helped man of that era to nourish himself so precisely? The absence of laws and treatises. He could rely only on the divine. Today, people say that man is whole, one with nature. But where does this whole lie now? When man consumes only the artificial food the system finds convenient and offers him, the hours for consuming food have been set by an arbitrary artificial system. Then, in the Vedic period, man's God-given senses decided everything for him. And the tiniest dimension could satisfy the sensation of hunger. Because it satisfied a hunger that wasn't just of the physical. It's of the quintessential essence of the spirit, of the soul. After all, man's senses, in accord with his dimension of love, like the most perfect automaton or smartest treatise, determined the minutes when he should take nourishment. Man walked in the dimension he created. His thought was free, and he could solve the universal problems or create. All around were fruits, alluring in their beauty. Intuitively, he picked one. He picked one or two or three and ate them, without letting his thoughts stray to what God had given him for his delectation. Man did not think about food then. He nourished himself the way we today breathe. The dimension he created, together with his intuition, resolved precisely the problem of how, when, and what to feed his flesh. In winter, many plants were released from their fruits and leaves, prepared to rest. Winter is for creating the coming spring. However, even in winter, man did not waste his thoughts on food, although he did not prepare anything to eat in advance. All this was done for him with great effort and love by his domestic animals. And the squirrels prepared many mushrooms and nuts. The bees collected pollen and honey in the fall. The bear dug a cellar and put roots in it. And in early spring, awakening, the bear went up to the man's dwelling and rumbled, or hit the door lightly with his paw. It didn't matter. The bear was summoning man in order to show him which of the cellars to dig up. Might the bear have forgotten where he hid the food? Might he have missed contact? Any member of the family might come out to him, but most often it was the child, giving the awakened worker a pat on the snout. He would go to the marked spot and stamp his little foot. In that spot, the bear worked hard to claw up the earth and tear out the stores. When it saw when it saw them, it rejoiced, jumped up, and showed its paw above the surface, but did not eat them first, waiting for the person to take at least something to his own dwelling. The person may have put up some food himself, too, but this was more art than work. Many families made wine from various berries and fruits. The wine was not strong or alcoholic like vodka, but a most salubrious beverage of animal food. Man might also use milk, but not from every animal. He took it only from an animal he considered to be good-natured, kind, and intelligent, and that expressed a need for man to enjoy its output. For example, if one of the children or one of the older family members went up to the goat or cow and touched its udder, but the animal suddenly shied away, man would not drink the milk of an animal that did not want to share it with him. This does not mean that he took a dislike to man. It often happens that animals, in some way unknown to them, determined that at a given moment the composition of the milk mixture was not beneficial to the person. The people of the Vedic civilization only fed on the diverse plant foods from their own plot and what their domestic animals brought them. This approach was not stipulated by any superstition or law. It was the result of great knowledge. There is more than one way to know. There are different degrees of knowing. One can not only know, but also sense with oneself, one's flesh and soul, many phenomena, the purposes of the divine creations, and his system. His, as in, this is directed toward like Christian God kind of persona because of who she's talking to. That's the mentality she's working with. So that's what she's trying to uh, reach towards. So in that context, it's creator or divine intellect or whatever suits your fancy. Each Vedian knew in this way that what he used for food not only nourished the flesh, but also filled the soul with consciousness and brought him personally information from all the universe's worlds. This is why the energy inside them, the sharpness of mind, and the speed of thought in those people exceeded that of modern people many times over. The animal world and the plants living in the human family's dimension reacted to man as to a god. The animals, herbs, and trees all thirsted for a kind glance or a good-natured touch from man. This power of sensory energy did not allow weeds to grow in the garden or orchard. And know what that means by weeds. It just means unnecessary growth because there's nothing in nature that is what you may think of as weeds. It's all for purpose. Many people today also know that a domestic flower can suddenly wither if it is not to the liking of the someone in the family. On the other hand, it can flourish if it feels love and communication. This is why Vedic people never touch their garden with a hoe. There is an expression even today. Evil eye, or put the evil eye on. It comes from those times. Those people were able to create a great deal with the energy of their senses. Imagine a person walking across the ground of his plot. Everything around tries to catch his good grace, glance. Here he looked at a weed. Why are you here? The man thought. The weed soon would wither from sorrow. On the contrary, if someone smiled at a cherry tree, that would make its sap run through its veins with doubled energy. If a person had to go on a long journey, he did not encumber himself with something to eat. He could find plenty of food for himself on the way. When he stopped at a settlement and gazed upon its beautiful homesteads, he would ask for something to eat or drink. It was considered an honor to offer a traveler beverages, fruits, and delicious roots. So hopefully that came through. That's interesting. It's interesting that there's nothing going on at 24 minutes. But also I've been noticing that uh, even in other live chats that I've been in, a lot of the messages getting received or transported. Let's say we got a little bit of time, 24 minutes, and they'll probably cut me off around 30. So until then. Interesting. So, I'll just go ahead and pull a card here. One card. Let's see what we get. Nope. Reshuffle. I did not have the full deck to work with. Okay. Take two. Hopefully before it cuts out. Yeah, we got about 3 minutes. Perfect. Uh-oh. Is it cutting out? Are we good? Are we clear here? Let me know. Which is great. 13. Working with the 1s and the 3s and the 4s lately for show. Phoenix. Atop a blazing pyre, a corpse rests, his face tranquil. 3 figures gather to mourn their beloved's passing, each in their own rooms beside an overturned cup. Another huddles in grief. A third pulls. The grim reaper himself kneels, filled with sorrow at the role destiny has laid out for him. No one seems to notice the enormous phoenix that rises from the flames to the sky. While pulling the death card may be daunting at first, take heart. This card is rarely about someone actually dying. Death is in every moment of our lives. Parts of us are always dying, and parts are always being born. The cycle of life, death, and rebirth is the most ancient law of the land, and each phase is necessary for the next. Despite the many negative associations with this card, it brings an amazing gift, the possibility of transformation. Now is the time to release patterns and beliefs that no longer serve you. Giving up old habits is often painful, as is the in-between state when we feel only loss without the reward of new growth. But if you can truly let go, you can free up your energies to enjoy the wonders of this life while they last. So don't let discomfort dissuade you from making radical changes. Have trust in the future, bid farewell to the past, and allow yourself to be reborn in the present now, in the everlasting. Oh, it cut me out. 31. Fair enough.